Good afternoon and welcome to this online session on educational technology and learning. CBSE is organizing this program in collaboration with Google with an objective to equip its teachers in integration of technology in teaching learning process across all curricular areas. Now, this program consists of webinars, course material, exercises, and assignments. And this program is spread over 5 days, scheduled on 19th, 22nd, 24th, 26th, and 30th March 21. Since each session will have different topics, all the registrants are required to join the session on all the 5 days. They will also receive the link of course material and assignments like preparation of lesson plans on their CBSE Digital Edu.in. Once they successfully complete these assignments and assessment, they will receive certificates. And these sessions are also open on YouTube for all to view. And the YouTube links of the sessions are also available on CBSE Academic website under the notification number 26 dated 10th March 21. The resource person of the session is Ms. Deepti Sahani, who is COE and founder of Mahatattva, an organization which is involved in research and development of curriculum for skill-oriented education. A certificate holder from the College of Teachers, Institute of Education, London and Trinity, she has worked in schools in India and the UK. Before I invite her for the session, I have the privilege of inviting Dr. Biswajit Saha, Director Training CBSE, who is the brain behind this project, for his motivating words. Dr. Saha.
Thank you, Ramaji. I think it's good. Bunny also joined from Google Educations. Dipti ji, my colleague Shandeep, and others. Of course, more than 1 lakh teachers who have joined us in a virtual mode. So this is first ever synchronous teachers training sessions where more than 1 lakh participants already join us. And of course, I know through the power of technology, many of our faculty members will join through YouTube. But these 1 lakh teachers have a direct access for asking direct questions to the resource persons, and then assignment submission, getting assignment and timely assignment submissions. So as Ramaji has rightly mentioned, these 5 days are very much crucial and important for all of us. So my request to all the participating teachers and school leaders, don't miss a single class, so that this enriching experience, I know I am and very much confident that during COVID periods, the way you have shown your responsibility, I think this experience would be more enriching, and you will get an exposure with many platforms and many edtech platforms, and that would be a really empowering experience for all of you. So my best compliment to Dipti ji, who is very much from spearheading the Mahatattva education's vision. And I think here she is the right resource to lead a 5 days journey along with her team member. And special thanks to Google, because it is because of their technology, we are able to venture out a new mission. Because by means of physical training, of course, our reach is limited. But at a time, reaching 1 lakh teachers, it was a dream for CBSE. I think Google has helped us to reach that many and parallel classroom sessions. So our technical team, Shandeep Jain, Joint Secretary Training, and then Sudesh Gulia and her team member, and Google technical team member, they were instrumental in conceptualizing this vision to reality. I hope similar kind of workshops we will every month we are going to organize, and more national and international partner will identify. And through this forum, it is an open invitations to those people, those competent peoples, competent organizations. If you feel that you want to reach at a time more than 1 lakh teachers, and you have such kind of knowledge and experience, you want to share with CBSE school teachers or in general the teachers of the country, we will welcome you. So please join hand in a competency based world and to create a qualitative journey. Thank you very much. I think I should not take more time. It's your sessions, and in between Diptiji and say CBSE and Google, we should not take much time. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you, Dr. Saha, for your motivating words. Now I invite Ms. Bani Dhawan, Head of Education Google in South Asia, to say a few words. Bani, madam.
Thank you, Rama ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Saha. Pleasure to see you, Deepti ma'am, and namaskar to all of you. Thank you so much for giving us an opportunity. We are humbled and honored, and all credit to Deepti ma'am for leading the way as a partner with us, for having over 100,000 participants in the first ever webinar. We are humbled by it. We are hoping that not only do we meet your benchmark in terms of the teaching and learning pedagogy that we are trying to work in conjunction or collaborate with you on, but we also excel in it. It is about collaboration. It is about learning from each other. It's also what we proudly call creating a peer network, where we're able to take some of these learnings together and take it to the next level. Dr. Saha, thank you so much for leading the way and for having the vision that we should take teacher training online. We should be able to provide a more synchronous approach to teacher training. And what really stood out for me as we were preparing for this webinar is how we were able to connect the dots in terms of being able to not only provide an experiential learning experience for teachers, but also having, taking the teachers through a journey. When we're talking about how do you apply some of that knowledge that you all will be discussing today and learning and incorporating all the way into actually leading up to an assessment and a certification. If I look at it from an outside perspective, it's clearly how you would be delivering that experience to your students as education leaders, as educationalists, and particularly in a time, where all of us are trying to come together and say, how do we ensure that we are able to continue learning for a wide range of, school systems, for a wide range and requirements for our students in India. So again, hats off to you, congratulations and all the best. And I would again call out the fact that, Deepti ma'am has worked very, very hard. I know she's put her heart into creating these modules in terms of delivering it with her team and partnership. And so, I'm thankful for all of that and more. And we look forward to your feedback as well as educators on how we can even take it to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you, Bani ma'am. Before I invite ma'am, just one more announcement that teachers can go to a link of a Google form which is available in the description box, and they can put their comments and questions, and which will be replied by Deepti ma'am in the next session. So now, Deepti ma'am, the platform is yours. You are invited.
Thank you so much, Bani, for the kind words, and Rama for introducing me. As Rama has introduced, I'm Deepti Sahani. I will be seeing you over 5 webinars, and hope that we'll have lots of fun. So we should begin now. So allow me to just share my screen. Before I, even begin to talk about what the webinars are going to be and what's the webinar for today, I just want to thank all the educators out there for stepping up, during these times. And in my own ecosystem and beyond, we have seen how, teachers have just collaborated with each other. They have shared resources. They have, shared their best practices as to how do we get online. So I think the things that I'm going to talk about are pretty much how blended learning should carry on. These good practices that we have learned over the pandemic should carry on. We shouldn't stop them just because we are going face to face. So just a little bit about what these webinars are going to be. The first one, of course, is today, and it is on educational technology in teaching and learning. The second one, that is on the 22nd, we will have active learning strategies for authentic classroom engagement. We will then have the third seminar, which will be on making learning visible. The fourth one is on constructivism. And as announced initially, we will be looking at developing a lesson plan or a concept plan, which each of the participants will need to create to be able to get a certification. So this will be an important webinar for you to attend. And finally, we will be looking at assessing and evaluating our learning using technology. So this is about the 5 webinars that we are going to have during this month, the last one being on the 30th. So let's start the session for today. When we talk about blended learning, there are a lot of perceptions that a lot of us have. What is blended learning? How do we go for it? How do we actually implement? What are the things that we should keep in mind? What is the vision that we should have for teaching and learning in our schools? So there are a lot of things that will pop up in your mind as we go through the webinar. So a link has been given to you. There is question that you can, or more questions you can write to me, and I will try and answer them before the next session starts. There is a proper assessment at the end of these webinars as well, which will be multiple choice using a Google form. So all of you who are really looking at this from a certification perception of going through the 5 webinars, most of you should do it. There is a little trick that I want you to do. On a notepad, I want you to make 3 columns. And in the 3 columns, I want you to think about what pedagogy we are talking about in the first column. In the second column, look at the skill sets. What are the skill sets that we are talking about while we are talking about these different pedagogies? And finally, what's the tool that you're using? Now, what usually happens is we get overpowered by these gizmos out there, and we forget that this learning tool is actually to be mapped with the outcome of the learning that you have decided. So don't just look at technology that it is going to come, it's a silver bullet, it's going to come and change my classroom. No, you will have to make that effort. So for your own notes, make 3 columns. One for the pedagogy or the concept that you think is being discussed, the skill sets, and finally, what tool are we using? So the webinar objectives for today, we will look at different models of technology integration. Not important for you to remember, but you should know as an educator in today's world what these are. I will be looking at ISTE standards, not because we want to, copy them or we want to make something like them, but it's nice to know that in the international community, there are standards that people set for teachers and students when they're using technology, and it's a good idea to create a simpler one in your own schools. We will be looking at how can we develop integrated technology lesson plans. We will, not me specifically, I will be talking to you about the various integrated technology pedagogies and skill sets that you can use. You in turn have to look at your own area. So there is transformation which will happen in this objective. I will not give you, things on the platter that you do this for maths and you do this for English. I will give you the core of what technology integration should be. And in your mind, the learning transformation should happen where you start thinking about how can I use this in my classroom. And that is higher order, not only for the children in your classroom, but for you as well. We will be using the Google Classroom as a management system. So I'm going to give you a small demo for that. So if all of you can observe my screen very carefully, you can see that I've opened up a Chrome tab. And on the Chrome tab, I have classroom.google.com. So this is what you will have to do. You can write the instructions if you want. And I'll repeat it. You have to open up a Chrome tab and write in classroom.google.com, or you go in and get your login, your own login, Gmail login. All of you have the CBSE login, and that is the Google login. You look at these 9 dots. They are called the Google App Grid. So you click on it and you will be able to see the classroom there. So that's the second way of getting to it. When you get to this landing page, you can see on the right hand side, there is a plus button. So when you click on this plus button, you have 2 options. If you're a teacher, you will create a class. If you're a student, like for this one, you will be a student, you will click on join class. And CBSE will be sending you, or would have already sent you, the classroom code. Once you go in, you will be able to see all the resources that we have compiled for you in this classroom. So there are lots of free tools. So if you look at this, there is a tool called Padlet, which is very good for online brainstorming. And I'm sure a lot of you are using it in your classroom. There is a link for how you get to it. And there is a how-to video with it. How do you use Padlet in the classroom? So in the same way, I have put all the resources for you here. There are some free tools for assessment. There are some templates, some amazing templates for you to use directly in your classroom. There are some resources where you can go on these websites and you can use in your classroom. There are 2 showcases that I've put in so that we all learn by sharing with each other. So there are 2 schools showcases that are there. So you can click on them and you can see how these teachers have made a difference in their class by using technology. So you can go in and see that. Some research papers that we have got on blended learning, I've put those there. And finally, self-assessment. This is where your assessment Google form will come up after the 5th day of interaction that we have with you. So a little bit about the classroom. That is what the learning platform is, what we are using. And I'm sure you will be able to get onto it with your class codes. So I'm moving ahead. When we talk about technology integration, I want you all to sit very calmly and just have a clean slate in front of you. So when we think about technology, we are actually deliberating. I know that you all have, for the past 1 year, you've gone on and you've created systems and processes where you have used technology in your classes. But let's just rethink. Let's just sit and reflect what can technology do and how to do it the right way. And in this case, we are looking at the blended form of learning, wherein we will use both face-to-face and online interactions. So when you look at technology, that's just a little piece in your puzzle. What really is important are the people and the processes that go behind integrating technology in your classroom. So you can choose whatever you want. You can have Google, Microsoft, Apple, whatever that your system or your school has decided. But what is more important is, unless and until the teachers are actually, at it, they know, they are professionally developed, they know how to actually use this tool in the classroom, the transformation or the change is not happening. And apart from the people who are actually implementing this, the processes. How do you actually integrate the entire systems and processes to be able to do technology integration? So technology is just a little bit. And I'm sure all of you who are listening will understand and will reflect that how we actually went through this entire pandemic with creating our own systems and processes, with our teachers getting stepped up with their professional development, and kudos to you for all of that. So when we look at technology, you know that, you have seen this, you have read it too many times, you've heard people say that technology is just a tool, right? Technology just, it has that capacity to just extend your learning. So you can use it as a tool, but don't let it become the master of you. It has extended our minds. Now, what we thought when we were in school, what we thought, doing collaboration with our peers online and writing reports, we would go to each other's houses and do it, and probably waste a few hours doing that. Apart from the fact that, yes, the social connect is still important, but there are things that we could have automated. So it has extended our minds. It has got us to do things that we couldn't do before. And I think even if that is true, even if that technology is true, we have to understand that the realization of human talent and the way that we think of different possibilities, technology still can't do it. Technology still can't ideate, and we can. So we have to think about technology as something which gives us adaptability, which gives us agility, which gives us the fact that we should be open to change. But we also must understand that technology becomes redundant. So we have to our education has to be based on skills, something that our children will learn and never forget. So we have to make sure that apart from the focus on just technology as a tool, we have to look at the skill sets, and hence this new wave towards skills and competencies. So you do know the story about Kodak. When we were little children, Kodak was the thing, the cameras and the films, and we used to do all our photography, in fact, on that. But now nobody hears about it. Nobody has your generation, the younger one, have probably not even heard or seen a Kodak camera, apart from the thing that they would have heard of a Kodak moment. So we have to move towards skills and competencies. Technology should be used just as a tool. So when you talk about technology integration, there are lots and lots of models. And how do we move to the skill or competency-based environment is that we follow a certain pattern, right? And in this, there are two models that I'm going to talk about, but here again, I'm stressing you don't have to remember them or rote learn them. This is just for your understanding. So if you look at look at a report that you have to create, or you've asked the children to create a report for you by doing some sort of a research in the library. How do you take it up? When you take it up to substitution, here you are using a word processor like Google Docs, and you research on the internet and you create a report. But you are not taking this this skill set higher. You are just substituting what you were doing in a notebook, and you're just taking it online. So this first step is substitution. Then you have augmentation. How do you take it a slightly higher than that? So you've used the Google Docs or a word processor for your research. You are writing your report on it, and then you share the document virtually with your teacher. So instead of handing over a notebook, you are getting the teacher to see it virtually. So you are augmenting the real physical world with the virtual world. How do you take it slightly more higher? How do you modify so that higher learning learning skills are achieved by the students? So here you've done the research, you put it on a word processor, you've shared it with the teacher, but then you're also sharing it with students. So the students are going to give you peer evaluation on it. They're going to give you some sort of constructive feedback. Then you have a draft 1. After you take their feedback, you have a draft 2. Now, what is happening is that you have written a report and your peer is putting constructive feedback on it. But what you are doing is you've written your report, but you are giving peer evaluation to another student. So you are gaining another perspective. So in your classroom, usually you would just write in your notepad and you will submit it to the teacher. The teacher will probably have time in 2 or 3 days, and she will give you the report back after she's seen them, maybe 5 at a time. But using technology, this modification can happen so quickly. You can have draft 1, draft 2, draft 3. You can have multiple perspectives. You can have the feedback of the entire children in the class. And once you submit your paper, that is the final paper with self-reflection from you, which is a very essential tool. It is a self-regulated piece of work. It is well researched, and you've also learned that everything is not hunky-dory in this life. People will give you feedback, and you must take that positively. So modification from that first task where we are writing in the notebook has happened. Finally, you talk about redefinition. This is the highest form of integration that you can do. So you start with Google Meet, where you connect the children with, instead of just doing the research report on a city, you are actually connecting with the people of those cities. You question them, you take pictures, you have online forums where you do discussions, you collaboratively create research documents and slides and YouTube videos, share with each other, and the report, which was just in your notebook, actually becomes now a multimedia presentation. Not only research, not only just writing on the word processor, not only talking about, creating this little movie and sending it to your teacher. Now you have the whole world as your forum, wherein anybody who can go onto YouTube, go onto a playlist that you've created and see the various research tasks that you have done. So from your first level of substitution, your task now has become redefinition. So this is how technology integration actually grows and proliferates into higher order thinking skills. The second model, and the last one that I'm going to describe to you, is the TPACK model. So here it talks about the teacher's content knowledge. What do I know about science if I teach science? How do I teach science in the classroom? And what are the tools that I can use to be able to substantiate my learning outcomes? So when I talk about all three, you must understand, and I'm sure the leaders, school leaders who are listening will absolutely link to this, that unless and until a teacher's content knowledge and pedagogy knowledge is good, the teacher will never ever integrate, whether it is technology or it is horizontal integration of subjects. Unless and until you are on the top of your own game, you will not try to integrate. But what I find very, very interesting in this model is the context. We look at a tool and we get so enamored by it that, yes, I want to use a Padlet, or I want to use a Mentimeter, and I want to integrate it in my lesson plan. But this model tells you that never ever go out of the context that you're talking about in the digital space. Or if you're taking that digital product out of the virtual space and you're showcasing it somewhere, always have a context to it. So two very important things to remember is that if you are the SMR model, if you are doing the same thing that you can do in a normal classroom, please don't do it, because you are not integrating. So that is what SMR model actually, broadcasts, that unless and until you can redefine your learning, please go at it, please go with what you are doing and stay there. And I think the second model tells us that we should use technology, but we should never leave our context. So two important things to remember as we are talking about, the technology as a tool, technology as something which will help us take the learning higher, redefining the learning that is happening in the classroom. We also must remember that in all these cases that we've spoken about how technology is a part, of the entire process, but we have to have a very, very strong pedagogy before we do that. So, you should have technology enabled pedagogy rather than pedagogy enabled technology. So pedagogy always needs to come first. You describe your lesson plan. How is my lesson plan going to be? What is my learning outcome? What are the strategies I'm going to use? What are the various assessment tools that I will be using to assess my or see that if my learning outcomes are done? So plan all of that and then see in your repertoire of tools, what are the tools that I can use to take my learning higher? So whenever you are talking about using technology in the classroom, please remember that it is only about increasing the student motivation and improving your learning outcomes, making sure that the learning outcomes actually happen in the classroom. And I think also technology is there. You need to know how to leverage it to improve the teaching learning process. So always remember that pedagogy will come before technology. So these are the standards that I was talking to you about. If you look at them very carefully, there is a website at the bottom where the source is. You can get them, you can download them from the ISTE website. There are standards for teachers, there are standards for the IT support, there are standards for principals and administrators, there are standards everywhere. But if I've particularly taken the one which talks about the student. So you see the digital citizenship, your knowledge constructor, your designer, your thinker, your communicator, everything is there. So in the same way, in your own school, when you implement technology, please think of your vision. What is the vision? Even if my school is going back to face-to-face, please keep your component, your tech component there, because that is something very powerful. That is something which will get you to do so many things which you didn't even conceive before the pandemic happened. So have a little standard set for your own school. Start small. I would say 4 or 5 standards where I think cyber security should be a very important one, where you should have that as a component. Try and develop, look at this website, iste.org, look at the standards that they have and create some for yourself. And then what you will see is that when you read them through is that always, we have this amazing thread which comes through, and you can see through it that pedagogy for all, learning outcomes for all, student involvement, student engagement are the things which are always coming up first, rather than saying we want to be that school which uses technology, so let's buy some technology for the school. So how do you ensure that the learning outcomes are prioritized? How do you do that all the time? How do you ensure that you are not getting swayed by the tool which is there in the classroom? So I'm going to show you some examples which are from over 20 years of my experience. I was the leader for ICT in one of the international schools, and then I've taught in the UK as well. So this is a collation of all the, not all, some of the examples that I want to share with you today. I will be sharing more as we go across the 5 days. But have a look at this. So here the skill was creativity. And the tool, of course, for the computer teacher or the ICT teacher was the drawing tool. So we started with a squiggle. This is what we told them. We told the children that this is a squiggle. And then, of course, at the back, there was this agenda of a paint tool. There was an agenda of an eraser, a fill tool. So all that was not on the front. On front was creativity. We were looking at what the children would create. And this is what they came up. So they made a mermaid, they made a snail, there was a car. So what I'm trying to say is here that you all also must have heard of Sir Ken Robinson, where he constantly talks about how we kill creativity. So creativity develops very early, in a very early age. And the children actually have a very free mind. So we have to give them opportunities to be able to create that. So how Again, I'm going to go back to the question, how do we make sure? Here, the drawing tool has got nothing to do with my learning outcome. My learning outcome was that the children should be able to create what they are thinking about, and then we have a presentation where the children communicated why they had made what they had made. So creativity at its best. This example here, we all do sorting and we all do databases in our classes. So here what we did was we got the children to look at some colored blocks. So we told them to, like you do in your classroom, do a little bit of sorting. So we told them, please sort these blocks according to the color that they are made of. So the browns and the yellows and the reds came in their own groups. And then we said, okay, they're very small children. They're just about 6 years old. So we told them, okay, now what's going to happen is we're going to change the criteria. We use the word 6-year-olds and we use the word criteria. And they said, what's criteria? Let's understand. I said, okay, the criteria now is that you have to group these or sort these according to the material they are made of. So it really didn't matter whether it was blue or green or yellow. It was plastic. So all of it came together. So what changed? The criteria changed. So before we actually took them to technology, we got them to understand the concept of sorting, how the criteria changes and how the sorting changes when the criteria changes. And then they went on to the technology tool that we were using for data handling, and they went on and graphed their, whatever counting that they had done. This here again is for research skills, and the children were researching dinosaurs. So this was about Microsoft Word. It was about research skills. It was about the paint program. But that is something that the children were not made aware of. That was the hidden agenda for the teacher who had actually designed this activity. For children, it was research skills. So they had to look at various dinosaurs and they had to create their own. So this is what came up. So they understood that, the Saurus has to come at the end. So this is, and then this moved to a Microsoft Word document where they typed with bullets. So how do you do bullets? How do you do fonts? How do you do indent? All of that was taught to the children, but it was through an activity wherein they looked at dinosaurs, they researched dinosaurs, and then they made their understanding after reflection. This one is something, we all have done as kids. We create one sentence on our own and then we build a story. So here the characters were given to them, to the children. Again, this is for, the word processor. But the children went on and they added their own, they had their own font color, font size, again, paragraphs, justifying, all of that was done. But that again was the hidden agenda. The literacy outcomes were, how do you write a story? How do you, paraphrase? How do you put the ending, the middle, and the beginning, the ending, the middle, and the ending? So how do you do that? So that was the main agenda. And of course, the children had to think about the characters and link the characters and make that problem in the middle and what the solution was at the end. So again, integrating technology, putting the outcome, the pedagogy and the learning outcome first before the tool. In here, this is a Bbot. This is something that the children learn prediction with. It is a flow robot and it does simple logo programming. So if you look at the children, they were given certain instructions and they had to predict where this little toy will land up if they program the instructions that were given on the sheet. So it was group work. They all had to predict this. So prediction came as something which was very, very natural to them after playing with this for a day or two. And if you can look at it, and if we see for all skill sets that we are looking at, there is a progression. So once the children can predict, they can do pattern recognition. After pattern recognition, there is sequencing. Now, sequencing is something where you do your programming. How do you write the right and the wrong of the the computer languages, so computing comes into it. So every skill set that we have spoken about, and I hope you are taking your notes, that every skill set needs to have a progression, and you need to think through that if I'm doing prediction with the children in the next grade, what will I do with them, so that it builds on prediction. Here we are talking about prediction and decision making. So who's the leader, who's going to do the next steps, what are the various steps going to be. So if you turn the activity around, where you give them a point and they have to write the instructions, there are a lot of decisions which are taken by the children, and it becomes sort of a self-reflective exercise where they work as a team, work as a group, and they ensure that the prediction gets better and better as they go. This one here is a very excellent example on self-regulation. A lot of us have children who go online and they play math games and they do spelling games. But if you attach it to a learning outcome and you make the child and share the learning outcome with the child, that we are looking at addition, we are looking at numbers till 10. We are going to, I want you to put these numbers according to the sequence you think they will appear on a number line. Some of the digits, I'm afraid, are missing. So once you have the learning outcome which is shared with the children, they know exactly what they're doing. So it becomes very easy for them to become self-regulated. So instances of prediction, self-reflection, self-regulation, these are the kind of things which we do. A whole lot of us do in our classrooms, but we don't put much thought to it. And I'm sure a whole lot of you are sitting there in your seats and saying, oh my God, I do this as well. So I'm sure a whole lot of you do it. But when we talk about a skills program using technology, I think it's a very good idea to start jotting these points down, so that you actually get this Yahoo moment where you say, yes, I'm doing it as well. Let me make it more systematic. This here is Google SketchUp. It's available free of cost. You can download it and in your school systems. And I'm sure a whole lot of you are using this as well. What we found out with an analysis of our middle school, that the children were not very good in spatial skills. And this is something that we tested with activities, question papers, giving them case scenarios. And we found that we were at a 16 to 18% of percentage of what the children could make of spatial skills. And spatial skills in today's world are very, very important. So what we did was 2 years, we got the children on Google SketchUp, and we got them to do activities like this, planning the school, doing up their classroom. And 2 years later, we did another assessment from the University of Durham, wherein we found that the level had gone up to 78%. So looking at technology, you can make analysis like this. So use your Google Forms, Google Sheets, any kind of a sheet processor that you're looking at. Look at those, make sure that you are catching the feedback and the assessment of the children, and you are drawing conclusions from that. And you can then quantify something like spatial skills, which wasn't doing too well in the school, and suddenly, because of an identified software and classes and scenarios where the children were deliberating on the space around them, they could actually achieve the level that they did. So we have looked at a whole lot of scenarios, and like I said, I will be sharing more about this in the subsequent webinars, some more examples. But when you move from a brick and mortar school where everything was face to face, the teachers were in the classroom, you could actually go to a child and say, come on, do your work, to a school where the children will be with you, like we are synchronous right now, where we are talking to each other at a appointed time, 3 to 4:30 we'll be together. So we also need to understand that you lose that personal sort of a connection when you are in a blended or a virtual world. So how do you make sure that the balance is attained? A whole lot of you also must have seen that the children were depressed, they were anxious, they wanted to meet their the teachers, they wanted to meet their friends. So when you are talking about moving to a blended school, one thing that you all must remember is that building relationships is something that should be your number one goal. So keep connecting with the children. So I have seen teachers going one-to-one on Google Meet. I've seen them, connect with the parents on a mobile, doing a WhatsApp call. So technology actually gets you to do that. It gets you to connect with masses. Like we have more than 1 lakh people watching this webinar today. And we can also have one-to-one depending upon what the situation is. But as a school, when you take that decision that, okay, we've had this beautiful experience using technology and we want to stay blended, building on relationships is something that should be part of your vision. And the other thing, I think, what a school does, we go to school at a particular time. We have, our break times. We have our, play time. So all that is not because we want to put the children in silos. It is also about, promoting routines. We want the children to get up in the morning, get dressed, and come to school and attend their class. So when you are moving towards a blended model, I think it is very important to remember that some of the sessions that you have should be on time, like we are having one right now, where everybody comes together, or they come one after the other, but there is a slotted time. There are proper routines for handing over homework, for handing out assignments, for doing your assessments. Because what we have seen, and we have worked with a lot of schools during this past year on online teaching and learning, we've seen that routines is something that the schools really struggled with. So these are a few things, apart from a lot others, which should be kept in mind. But when you move from a brick and mortar to a blended school, please remember that the social connect should always be there. That is something that we should not lose on. And schools are very good on getting a child to become a disciplined human being, somebody who actually does things on time, is that person who's regimented, who works on a plan. And that is something, that is a life skill. That is something we should look and think about when we are looking at a blended model. So what is blended learning? So when we look at blended learning, there are three aspects to it. So the first aspect is what we are doing right now. So we are meeting face to face. It could be online or it could be offline, where there are certain activities that you will be doing with the children which are not very effective when the children do it on their own, or they do it with colleagues or at home. So there are certain things which need to be done together, the teacher with the student. So these are also the learning activities that we will be discussing in one of our webinars. What are those active learning activities? So when we talk about the face-to-face, please ensure that it is of quality, not of quantity, because a lot of parents also say there is too much screen time. The child is sitting there doing nothing, and the child is, you are talking on one tab, and on the other tab the child is playing games. So make sure that the face-to-face that you have with your children are qualitative. They are very, very nicely done. There is engagement. There is something that the child wants to connect with you for. So have those activities planned. At the same time, you need digital objects, learning objects, like a small video or a app or a little audio note or a podcast, some little digital object which you can share or you can create and share, wherein the children will be able to look at it and they will be able to adapt it to the learning outcome as the need be. Then there is a structured independent study time, wherein whatever you have done in the face-to-face, whatever you have digital artifact that you have handled or created or seen, that it all comes together in that independent study time where you carry out things on your own. So to give you another example and equate it to the situation that we have right now we are having a face-to-face interaction, right? There are digital objects that we will talk about. I just spoke to you about the Google Classroom. That is the platform where everything will come together. So the independent study time that each one of you will have will be in that space. So instead of just talking about it, what I've done is I've designed this entire 5-set webinar in such a way that you actually experience digital blended learning. So we are looking at these sessions, these 5 sessions. We are going to look at different apps, and then you are going on to the Google Classroom where all these artifacts are kept for you to learn on your own. So these are the 3 elements that you need to have for blended learning. But when your school decides that you should have blended learning, what is your vision? You should know. We spoke about the vision before, so you should know what are you talking about? What do you want the blended learning in your school to look like? So what's your big picture? You should have that in your mind when you're actually planning for it. What are your priorities? Do you want the curriculum or the syllabus to be completed, or do you want the well-being of the children? You want the learning outcomes, building relationships, or all of it, and some more. There is no limit to it. You can create your priorities, but have your vision clear. Have it in front of you. So something that you should have before you start thinking about blended learning. A lot of the schools have just jumped into blended learning by saying आधा बच्चे आज स्कूल आएंगे, आधे बच्चे कल आएंगे और ये blended learning है. So that doesn't account to blended learning. You have to understand that there is planning involved. There is a vision involved in it. And like I told you, the technology is not a silver bullet. You will need the bandwidth, you will need devices, you will need setting of boundaries, how much is too much or how much is less. So all that needs to be understood. And this is something I've added over the few weeks that I have been interacting with people, that we talk about children and we say, okay, you're listening to me, I don't know if you're listening to me, can you please switch on your cameras? And we've done this so many times that we want to be sure that the child is actually looking at you. And we happen to work in a school wherein the students say that they live in a one-room house, and they don't want to show their background. They don't want to show their houses. And at that point in time, meat or whatever wasn't blurred at the back. So we have to understand where the child is coming from. We have to understand what this child's situation is, and we have to set realistic expectations. We cannot have, everybody having a device. We cannot have everybody having the bandwidth. We have to understand. Take an audit. We work with a school in Ghaziabad, and they did a complete audit before they went online. They found out how many devices are there in the houses, how many parents are working from home, how many devices will be available at a certain point in time. So have realistic expectations for that. Keep it simple. Don't have things like, we will do the messaging on WhatsApp, the assignments will go on Google, and the teachers will teach in Zoom. That is some most chaotic thing that you can do for a teacher, for a student's learning ethos. Have everything in one place. Make it simple. I'm not saying that, invest in thousands and lakhs of rupees on learning management systems, but there has to be one place where the child knows that this is where I'm going to go. And if there are slight changes or there are some different things that are going to change over the time, please make sure that there are instructions, there are repeat demos, or there are recordings where the children can go and they can see, what are the expectations from me. So all of these things are nice, and you must have experienced, many of you must have experienced that things will go wrong. There are things which are, things which are beyond your control. So you have to prepare your community. You have to let them know that we are all part of this learning curve. Things can go wrong, but we are sitting here to make them right. And we will make sure that the children will not be the people who will actually get the repercussions. We will move the system before that happens. But at the same time, you have to be prepared to experiment with us. This is something new. This is something we have learned over the last year that really works. This is something which has made us see that the learning outcomes really jump up. The skills that we could never think of doing in a class of 40 have started happening. So we must not lose this, the learnings that we have done. So make them part of that learning curve. Make them understand that let's do this together. But whatever you say, whatever you talk to them about, the communication has to be the same. It has to be clear, it has to be precise, and it has to be the same for all the stakeholders. You can't tell the teachers that we will do this, that, and the other, and the parents not getting the same information. So the communication has to be the same across the entire community. So we have spoken about the big picture in the blended space, what it is, what are the various integration models. We have spoken about how we have to use technology to take the learning higher. We have spoken about how we have to keep things in context, and we have spoken about how to make your blended learning effective. But the unit that actually is going to make that difference is your lesson plan. So how are you going to make sure that what you're talking about, or what I'm talking about for that matter, how will you make sure that that actually is executed in the classrooms? So I'm going to show you, take you back to the classroom where all our resources are kept. The first one here is on engagement. So I've created a Padlet wherein you can write your thoughts, not right now, whenever you feel like, you can put in your thoughts as to how do you ensure that pedagogy happens. And I can see a lot of you have already started writing, so that's good. So you can put in your thoughts there. How do you create a sticky note? You can just click on this plus and it gives you a sticky note, and then you start writing on it. So this is the first interaction or engagement that we have. The second one here, if you can see this, there are two templates on this. One is a PDF, and a lot of you know about constructivism. I've seen CBSE schools practicing the 5 E's. So it gives you a planning template. It tells you what engagement is, what explanation is, what explanation is, exploration and evaluation is. So all of that is there for you to see. And then there is a template of this lesson plan. So it's a very simple lesson plan that I have made as a Google Doc. So all you have to do is download this and create your own lesson plan and upload it in the space which will be provided on day 5. So you can see that. So whatever we are talking about, you can download this today and you can start writing your notes on this, start preparing the lesson that you want to submit. The idea is that we will be looking at how have you integrated technology, putting pedagogy first. And for that, we've given you clues. How can you get student engagement? How can you get student exploration to happen in your research? How can you get the explanation to happen? Exploration and evaluation. What are the evaluation tools that you will use to evaluate the lesson plan that you're creating? So like I said at the beginning, the Google form that will pop up on day 5. And this lesson plan is what you have to submit when you give your assessment for these webinars for your certification from CBSE and Google India. So please keep note that this is the lesson plan. I can go back and show you again how I came to this. So you have to go to Google Classroom from typing classroom.google.com or going to the Google Grid here and clicking on Classroom. Once you've done that, you will click on Join Class. You will put in the code that has come to you and you will join the class, and you will come into a classroom like this. Because of the numbers that we have registered for this webinar, we have more than 60 classrooms, same classrooms, which have been developed by CBSE. So make sure that you put the code that has been sent to you and you will enter a classroom like this. You will click on classwork, and the second level of your resource is lesson planning. And if you click on this, you will be able to, you have to click on it for this to drop down, and you will be able to see the templates. I hope that is clear. Some of you have joined here as well, I can see that. So I'm moving back to our lesson planning. So what are the various things which we have to keep in mind when we are looking at lesson planning for technology integration? So we are talking about, going online for some of the things like our assignments, some of our homework, some assessments. You have to understand that when you are planning this, your staff needs to know what this is. Even if it's a template that you'll be using on the drive, on the cloud, but everybody needs to know the process while planning this. So what is that you're going to do is you're going to understand the features of what is the communication tool. So for instance, you are using Zoom or Google Meet. So how is that going to work? Give a little video for the parents to understand how is this going to work, how is this going to activate, what do you need to have, what is the most common mistake that people make is that they forget to change the IDs. So you need to be on the school domain to be able to access all of that. So make sure that the features of the communication tools are known to everybody, the school staff, the parents, the teachers, everybody should know. Keep it simple. We have spoken about keeping it simple. There are certain things that you can automate. Like you will see that the Google form that we share with you, it's for 40 marks and it is fully automatic. So 1 lakh people will be accessing that Google form and none of the facilitators will need to mark anything. So think of such things where you can automate some of your teaching learning aspects so it becomes easier for you. Keep a regularity on the communication. Don't let there be gaps. So by gaps, I mean if you are sending in weekly reports to what has happened in the classroom, or you are sending, tomorrow we are going to do a hands-on activity. So make sure that these things are available at home. So the regularity of your communication should be top class. So that is something you can't compromise on. But when you're talking about communication, there should also be communities. All teachers are moms, they're all parents, they also have their own obligation and responsibilities. So make sure there are hours. So I'm available to you 9 to 5, but before 9 and after 5, I have things to do on my own. So as a school, you need to set those boundaries before you start, looking at your workflow. Your workflow, I spoke about the lesson plan, but before the lesson plan, I think your entire planning is part of what you do in the classroom. So that is the reason I told you about these 4-5 things that you should keep in mind when you are looking at learning in a blended space. So when you are doing your workflow, there is no right, no wrong. Okay. So there are some people who say we are having the complete school timing, the timetable just the way it is. We have to remember that when we go online, most of the things cannot and should not be synchronous. if you have a 30 minutes period or a 40 minutes period, you can have a 30 minutes and have 10 minutes of away from the screen time, where the children are doing sums or they're doing whatever, and they come back to you in the next slot, and you discuss it or talk about it. I also know of schools where they meet only for 15 minutes, and the next 30 minutes are on what the children do, and then they come in for discussions. So it is up to you. Make sure that the timetable is such that everything is balanced and everything is something which will be for the benefit. There's only one person we are looking at, and that is the student. The student should learn, but not at the cost of health or anxiety issues or parents having a problem with devices. So we have to look at that as well. How will we provide the learning? So our children are at home. You have to understand that when you are talking about learning, take it in perspective. There are distractions, there are access barriers, there are family situations, and the example I gave you, this child who probably had just one room and the whole family was in that room. So if you have flexibility, if you have a blended sort of a scenario with a little bit of synchronous, and the children can access as and when, that is the best way to go. You also do want to touch base with them, so you can have a one-to-one interaction. I know a lot of schools who are doing, which are doing passion projects, they do one-to-one with children, wherein most of the morning is kept for classes. Like if you're doing a math class, there is a 10-minute of interaction where the teacher explains, and then 30 minutes of children doing their work on a platform and submitting by 12 o'clock. So that is the end time. So you know that there are these 10 sums that the children want to do, they have to do. And if you put a routine to it, we spoke about routine. If you put a time to it, and Google Classroom actually gets you to do that. If you put an end time, the children can't submit after that. So you have your face-to-face, and then you leave it to them to be able to do stuff on their own. And then there are these teachers and principals who tell me that, Deepti, what if they cheat? Now, that is up to you. The planning of your lesson needs to change. It needs to change in such a way that they can't get the answer from Google, or they can't get the answer from a textbook. So even your approach to questioning needs to change in the blended space. You need to select an LMS. Where will you share the resources? What are the digital tools? Are your staff trained? How will you provide feedback? Very important. How will you ensure that the learning outcomes that you had set, how have they been achieved? But in an online space, in a blended virtual online space, we have to remember that the summatives will not work all the time. You need to have scope for formative, because this word, this phrase that has really come up, self-regulated learning, deeper learning, is because we advocate in the learning space a child becoming more and more self-regulated. So if you have assessment where, formative assessment, where the child is doing an assessment and is able to see or is able to realize that this is where I need to work, that is beneficial, is more differentiated than a teacher putting a tick or a cross on a sum and saying this is not the right way to do it. So when you set up the calls with the students, I thought when we are going to talk about this entire intervention of blended space, we should start with making video calls. So what we are doing right now is on Google Meet, and you people are on Meet, or you are on a platform, or you are on YouTube. So there are certain protocols when you're making a video call as well. So what is, first of all, is that as a school, you need to make a choice, which is the most secure platform that you should be using with your students. So you need to make a choice of that. I know some schools are still deliberating between Zoom, Meet, and the others, lots of them which are now available. Suddenly the market is full of these tools. What are the challenges? So do an analysis as to finding out from your own community, which one do they think is a good one. And if there are some challenges, collate them. Let your IT people or your teachers one-to-one with the parents, let them understand what the challenges are, what they're facing, and how to actually get them connected. Your video call can be whole class, like we are doing right now. It can be small groups, or it can be on individual calls. There are lots and lots of add-ons which you can have, like, raising your hand, doing a grid, taking attendance. So you have to understand that when you know how to manage the settings, the children do so as well. So having a set protocol for the children is very, very important. And what norm and what protocol that you set for these video calls, it's best regulated by the children themselves. Let them come up with what the protocol should be when we are on a video call. So if they create it, it gives them ownership, and it also gets them to understand what the do's and the don'ts are better. And again, an example from a KG class in Chandigarh, a school that we work with, they have a mic monitor, if you please. Before this, system of switching off the mics came on, there was, in KG class, every day there was a mic monitor who would, ensure that nobody talks when the teacher is talking. So gave a lot of leadership, feeling to that child that I'm controlling. You have to get them involved in this entire system. Sharing your links. There's a lot of ambiguity where, how do the children get on to the classes is concerned. So you have to think of a system. How do you get your timetables regulated? How do you share it with the parents, with the children? How do they come on? Little small things like turning off cameras when the bandwidth is weak is something that you can do as well as a teacher. So if your bandwidth in your place is not so great, turning off your video helps. And there are some teachers, not anymore. We usually see them in schools which are, just jumping into this space, that they're a little camera shy. So they don't want to, get in front of a camera and talk to a screen. Like I don't like it very much as well, because I can't see you. I like to see people when I'm talking to them. So there are lots of people in I'm sure in your schools and in your classrooms as well, who don't like to come in front of a camera. So practice that. Practice with a colleague, and that really helps, because you are looking at the screen, you're talking about your content, and your colleague can give you constructive feedback. And one point that I wanted to cover on recordings. A whole lot of schools are hungo on, I'm recording my lessons, all our lessons get recorded. But I just want to ask, how many of you have actually gone back and seen those recordings? Not many. So even a child who's absent or a child who is sick probably doesn't want to see the entire class. So I think it's just a request. This is something that you can, when you are looking at a blended sort of a classroom where everything doesn't need to come on, only the principal explained or the discussion that happened among the peers in the classroom, small snippets. So research says that children stop watching a video after 2 to 3 minutes, even if it's a very engaging one. If you're showing a movie, of course, then that's a different sort of a thing, because that is something that they love doing. But for education and for resource sharing, 2 to 3 minutes is what you should look at. Get everything that you want squeezed into that 3-minute video so that the children actually see it. So lots of ideas for virtual meets. And just to let you know that this entire the Google Slides that I'm using for this session, this will come to you as a resource. I will take away the photographs of my children. I want to protect their identity. So those will come off. But other than that, everything that I'm talking about, all the slides will be sent to you as a resource in your Google Classroom. So what can you do in a virtual meet? You can do a whole school interaction, instruction, or a small group. You can follow up on missing assignments, letting them know. Most teachers, what they do is they give an assignment to the children, but they don't do a demo of how to access, where to go, what to do next. So a whole lot of you can actually make a 50 seconds or a 30 seconds video on how to access the assignments in the Google Classroom, because then you will not have n number of parents and teachers, children calling you up and saying, how do I get to this assignment? You can do check-in calls, talk to a few parents. We always pick up a call to say, your child is not performing well, your child is not behaving in class. I would say just pick up the call and say, what a wonderful performance your son gave in class today. So do calls like that. You can use virtual meets and, really talk to the parents and talk about the wonderful thing that the child did in class today. You can have a classroom presentation, just not PowerPoint presentation, but children speaking to each other, having debates, presentation skills, communication skills, all that can happen. What I've also seen as a virtual meet idea, what really works is the, read alouds for the children, even for the older children. So it is very soothing and it enhances your listening skills. So that works very effectively in Google Meets. You can have, a lot of you are already using these virtual meets for your PTAs, so those can happen, PTMs can happen. You can get a guest speaker, and I remember one of the examples wherein the students were doing young ones, and a young mother with a baby was called in as a speaker, and they loved the interaction between the mom and how the little baby was and all those inquisitive things that they had. You can do virtual tours, so you can get the children to actually be in field trips in this pandemic times. You can collaborate with another class in India or outside or abroad. You can have open hours for students' questions. So keep a timing like 3 to 4 in the afternoon where children can book slots with you. You can have debates, you can have 20 questions, you can have talk shows, you can have a very quick thumbs up, thumbs down as to your exit ticket before the session happens. You can doodle together. So these are a few things that you can start with. So please understand that this is the first webinar and we are slowly and gradually moving towards a virtual or a blended space. So we are looking at just the platform, so the Google Classroom, where you can go and explore in the evening today with your code, and primarily the last half that I'm talking about is about the virtual meet. How do you get pepped up? Remember to dress up. Don't be in your pajamas when you're talking to the children. Make sure that there is a protocol for the students as well. They should be, even if you're not insisting on uniforms, you must ensure that the children are nicely dressed. I have been in classes where children are lying down and taking classes. So we're talking about routines, we're talking about discipline, we're talking about keeping the same decorum as you would in a class. So please ensure that you have that kind of a relationship even in the virtual meets that you have with your children. So when you talk about, I'm back to technology integration, keeping in perspective whatever that we have heard so far, that when you are integrating technology, there are 4 questions that you should be asking yourself. The first one is that the technology that I'm using, will it enhance and support learning? Will it do something that otherwise couldn't be achieved? If it's not doing it, please don't do that integration. And one of the most important things which actually gets your class to fail is when you don't have the hardware, software ready. So please make sure that your hardware, software, and in the blended space, your platform, your resources that you've uploaded. Sometimes you upload YouTube videos and the school administrator doesn't allow the children to see those YouTube videos. So you have to make sure everything's working. And for me, the final question is the most important question, that if the children are not in charge of using this technology, you are actually not integrating it. So educational technology needs to be transformative to be effective. If you're using it to do the same thing that you have done without technology, you will arrive there only earlier. So I think these are golden words. If your technology integration actually is getting the children to take control of the technology, only then are you doing a job. So I'm going to give you a little demo now on the Google Docs, because we will be using it for the lesson plan as I showed you just here. So what are Google Docs? This is our lesson plan. You will be working on this. So I'm going to give you a small sort of an introduction to it. So when you open this, you will see all the things that you would see in a word processor. You can see it here. So I'm going to start from the left here. There is a file tab. So with file, you can share this document with anyone that you want. You can open up a new document. You can make a copy of this document if you want for your own Google Drive. You can email this directly to whomsoever you want it. And I really love this feature where you can download this. You can download this version as a Word or as a PDF, and you can keep it for yourself. Another fantastic feature is version history. So if you have a document and you go on see version history, you will be able to see what are the various things that were changed on this as the work progressed. So you can actually see what the children are doing, and when the children log in, you will be able to see which child has done what. So you can track down the work of the children as well. And your children can be working on this at the same time as you are. So this is synchronous word processor where everybody and anybody can get on. So going back to file, you can rename it, you can move it to the different folders in your drive. You can add it to your drive. Right now it is in my drive, but you can add this document to your drive to work on it, and you can publish it. You can change the language. This is the most amazing thing about Google apps, wherein you can change it in so many languages. There are lots and lots of languages where you can change, and yes, you can print directly from here. So if this device of yours is linked to a printer, you can just go on here and print. Rest, you will see that all the other tabs are more or less the same. So there is a central align, left align. You can change the text, bold, italics, underlined. So all of these are the same tools. One of the tools which is really amazing again is this one here, which is called the voice typing. So let me have my cursor here, and I go to tools and I say voice typing. And this is where the mic comes up. We are doing a demo of, it's probably got off. Just give me a minute. We are doing a demo of Google Docs. So whatever you are saying, it actually types it for you, and it does it in all the languages. So when we did this project in Maharashtra, people were absolutely excited with this because there was so much to type for their curriculum. They just came on, and this can work on Android phones as well. So you can just go to tools and do voice typing, and it does it for you. So this is your word processor. I wanted you to know about the classroom because we will be using this for all our resources. This is the Word document where you will be working on the template. And I'm just going to finish up in about 7 minutes and talk a little bit about strategies for collaboration. Now, we are looking at technology. We are looking at blended learning. We are looking at a space where children will be connecting with each other from wherever they are. So what can you use technology for? Collaboration is again a skill. How do you get the children to collaborate? It is not about just getting children together and getting them to fight it out. It's also about negotiation. It's also about, talking to each other and finding out what will work for us and what won't. It is about constructive feedback. It is about, working in that team and making it actually work. So how do you, in your lesson plan unit, how do you integrate collaboration? So you can have discussion forums, you can have breakout group discussions, you can have peer reviews, we spoke about that. You can have jigsaw activities. So you can give different subtitles to different groups and let them research on it and then come back and present it together. You can do web quests, and I will be showing you hyperdocs as well in one of our sessions, wherein you can get the children to hunt for clues according to what they have learned in class and come together and make a solution for a problem. You can write analysis, get them to write analysis on videos. You can do presentations, you can do reporting on topics, and the most important activity that can happen on a word processor like Google Doc are reflection activities. So when you actually talk about collaboration, there will be a session on this as well. I just want to sum up what we have been talking about today. We've just got ready with or primed our brains with what is blended learning, what are the different ways of structuring blended learning, having a very clear vision as to what you want in your school for blended learning. We have spoken about a tool to communicate with the children, and we have spoken about a processor wherein you can collaborate. So the interventions that we have, or the engagements that we will have, the 5 engagements that we will have chunks like this, not necessarily in 1, 2, 3, 4 order. And towards the end, you will be able to piece them together. So for me also, this entire activity is a sort of a jigsaw wherein you will be able to make your own meaning as we go, because I don't want to say that I am Deepti Sahani, I have 20 years of experience in technology integration, I know this is the correct way and this is how it works, please go ahead and try it. I am very, very sure that each school has its own individuality. Each individual in the school has its own way of working, and there can be no cookie cutter model for this. While big organizations like Google and CBSC and Mahatattva we will keep supporting you. We will keep giving you advice, but at the end of it, it's you who's going to make that difference. So I want you to look at this little piece from NEP 2020. I think it just sums it up very, very essentially. Yes, we are looking at technology. Yes, we are looking at blended learning. We might look at AI. We might look at whatever that comes up in this world. We are looking at foundational capacities. There is no doubt that literacy and numeracy needs to come in our teaching and learning. We need to understand that higher order thinking skills like critical thinking, problem solving, all of this is very important. But we also have to understand, without the social, ethical, and the emotional capacities and dispositions, we are absolutely nothing. So whenever we talk about changing what we want to change, please keep that human in the middle. Have a look at this. This is from the Finnish National Board of Education. So they talk about everything. They talk about critical thinking. So when we set up Mahatattva 3 years back, we went there. Our MD took us to Finland, and we immersed ourselves from kindergarten up till university level for 15 days. And we spoke about everything, how the blended learning is happening, how the children just hold a Chromebook like it's a textbook. They don't even give it importance as a gadget. It's just there. And they know ping in the Chromebook means some homework or assignment has come. So it's as, a layman, plain like that. But see in the middle, development as a human being and as a citizen, this is what they keep paramount. And this is something that our NEP also says that, and each one of you in your heart, I can fully 100% say that if you're an educator, if you're a true educator, this is what you have in your heart as well. So we are going to be talking about technology. We are going to be talking about blended, virtual, AI, IoT, whatever may you think of. But we have to understand, we have to nurture that student, that child in the classroom as a human being. So whatever you do, keep that as a core. And I want to show you this project that I did in Bhopal, again with Google. And the director there said that I don't want any marks coming up. I don't want to say that this child got 35 out of 50 before, and because of Google is now getting 50 on 50. I don't want to say that. My project outcome is there should be student engagement. So the entire 1.5 years, 6 months I worked with the teachers, 1 year we worked with the students, and the last showcase was all design thinking projects by the student. They were on the stage. The student engagement was complete. So when we are looking at technology integration, the crux of this entire session that we've had today is that augmentation needs to happen between the virtual, but don't forget the real world. We need to develop student agency. We need them to have a voice, have a choice, so that they are in that space, that they go out in society, they're actually empowered with their own voices. We have to make sure that the assessments that we look at are just not assessments with a cross and a tick. They should provide us with some learning analytics. And these learning analytics, whether it's an e-portfolio, it's a self-reflection, peer reflection, ipsative, for my own self-reflection, it should inform the learning process. Whether we are looking at any sort of assessment, we should get it back into that cycle and say, how will this make my learning process even better? We have to understand in a country like India that learning has to be flexible and it has to be accessible to all. You can't have it for a few and then say education will change. And for making all of this actually practical, we have to also keep in mind that unless and until the educators, they get together and they build communities of practice, all of this will not happen. So the educators are the most important vital link which will help us make this happen. Unless and until the teachers are empowered, this is not going anywhere. And this is a favorite quote, and I would like to end my session for today with, never doubt a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens that can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So every little group that you make in your school for that change towards a progressive, a thoughtful, a meaningful school, it will be that group which will start that change, and the world shall follow. Thank you so much for listening in, and for your time, and for the fact that this is the first MOOC by CBSE, and we have more than 1 lakh registrations. Thank you for making it possible. And the CBSE team has been really working very hard, led by Dr. Saha and Dr. Jain. And my thank you to them for their support. We will be doing the next webinar, and I'm sure that you would have seen the Google Classroom by then, and we'll have lots of questions. There is a question link where you can put in your question, and I will try and answer as many as I can. The next webinar is on the 22nd of this month, and I hope to see all of you there. Thank you so much for joining in. Bye-bye.